Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the second Pride Perspectives webinar of the school year hosted by us, Trinity-Pawling School. We are really excited that you are all here to join us as we discuss the topic building learning relationships for boys, mentors, peers, and role models. Before we do introductions, please know that we are recording this webinar and it will be available on our website. Additionally, we will answer as many of the pre-submitted questions as possible, but if any questions related to this topic arise, please use the Q&A feature. Let's get started. My name is Susie Horn, and I am the Director of Financial Aid and Senior Associate Director of Admissions here at Trinity-Pawling. I am joined by our host, Head of School, Bill Taylor. I am also joined by our wonderful faculty panelists. And we're going to start off by introducing Ms. Tucci.
Hi there, my name is Emily Tucci. I am a proud science teacher at Trinity-Pawling, as well as an athletic trainer and a parent. So I have been working here for 23 years now and have loved just seeing all of those different parts meld together in my time.
Evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirkaldy. I've been at Trinity-Pawling. I believe this is my 9th year. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions. I'm the head lacrosse coach, and I am one of the co-runners of Hastings Dormitory here on Trinity-Pawling campus.
Good evening. My name is Slade Mead. I believe I'm in my 18th year, either 17th or 18th year. I run the college office. My sidekick is Bill Dunham. And I also teach a U.S. history class, which is U.S. government. And then in the spring, I teach another elective class, mostly for seniors, constitutional law. Great to be on tonight.
Thank you, faculty. And next we have 4 wonderful student panelists. So Jameson is going to kick us off.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Jameson Fogelsong. I'm from Winter Park, Florida. This is my 3rd year at Trinity-Pawling. And I love getting to interact with all the different clubs and different chances that we get as boys to learn about new things.
Hey everyone, I'm Tanner Braden. I'm currently a junior and I've been here this is my 3rd year here. I'm from Camarillo, California, which is over by Los Angeles area. And my interests are entrepreneurship as it relates to technology and Chinese.
Hello, my name is Peter Nicoletta. I'm from Naples, Florida. It's my 2nd year at Trinity-Pawling. And so my interests are like fishing, hockey, and business equities.
Hello, my name is Corin Vanterpool. I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina. This is my junior year at Trinity-Pawling. This is my 2nd year, and I love to play lacrosse.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is an exciting topic, and we're excited to get started with Mr. Taylor. So, Mr. Taylor, why did you choose this topic for tonight's session?
Well, thank you, and good evening, everybody. This is my 24th year at Trinity-Pawling, but not all consecutive years. I was here for 13 years, began my career here. Then I left for 14 years, and I was the head of a co-ed day school for that period, and then came back, and this is my 11th year as head. And I share that introduction because beginning my career here, it sort of shaped me as an educator, as a young teacher here, because Trinity-Pawling is a highly relational-based school. The relationships, the community here is extremely important. And that I would say that's true of any excellent school. But I would also say that Trinity-Pawling takes it to a deeper level. And the relationships at this school play a very important role in enhancing and fostering the development of a greater sense of self-awareness in young people, and I would say in educators too. And the community that is here is a true active agent in the learning process. There's a level of trust that develops through these relationships. There's a level of openness that develops through these relationships. There's a degree of comfort with vulnerability that develops through these relationships in this community. And all of that enhances the learning. And it promotes a greater sense of self and self-awareness. And so that is really the key reason why we chose this. Now, some of you may have been on the panel that we had or the webinar we had a few weeks ago, and that addressed the loneliness epidemic. And in a way, this is a great follow-up to that focus that we shared with you several weeks ago. We talked about the importance of relationships, but also in combating some of the forces working against boys and really can be very unhealthy aspects in how young people are growing up today, particularly boys, and including an epidemic of loneliness. And here, the focus on community, I think we draw a lot of that focus from our boarding environment, but also from our Episcopal identity as an Episcopal school, gathering together in community and knowing what that means about sharing experiences together. And all of this, I would submit, is today rather countercultural, given the isolation that so many people feel, particularly young people, that having a school that is sort of so heavily layered in the commitment to community and relationships is countercultural in such a healthy way. Um, and if you were on the last webinar, we talked about the data on boys, both in terms of learning, but also in terms of increasing feelings of social isolation, and that's impacting all young people today. Certainly, technology has been a contributing force to that. The fragmentation of society has been a force of that, and a place like Trinity-Pawling, where there is uh, such an element of layers of community, really works to break down that isolation and develops it allows the boys to develop a real sense of trust and confidence through community.
Awesome. Well, I have also noticed that we talk about mentorship quite a lot here at Trinity-Pawling. Why is this so important to our school and for the boys?
Absolutely. Well, mentorship is the next level of agency from relationships and community. Um, our mission statement here is to create a learning experience that makes a transformational difference in the lives of the boys by enabling them to discover and nurture their own distinctive gifts and talents. And that's something that we believe very strongly in, that every single person has their own distinctive gifts and talents. And when I talk about self-awareness, a big part of that is creating an environment where that self-awareness can allow young people to discover what their specific gifts and talents are. And that comes through mentorship. Every excellent mentor I've had in my life were people that were able to see things in me before I was able to see them in myself. And without my knowledge, they were working to develop these gifts and talents in ways that I only sort of could look back and say, oh, that's what was going on with that teacher. That's what that coach was trying to do. Uh, I see it now. And so mentorship is that level of agency that invests in the strengths of the community and relationships to bring forth uh, that that self-awareness. Uh, and I think that's particularly important it's obviously very important for everybody, teenagers, boys and girls. Uh, but with boys, and this dovetails a little into what we were talking about several weeks ago about the data of impacting boys in learning and boys in schools. Uh, Only 24% of teachers in American schools are men. That's, from kindergarten through senior year in high school, 24%. And that means, and most of those 24% would be concentrated in middle school and upper school. So in the younger grades, boys in school are not seeing a lot of male role models in the classroom. And so as an all boys school, we're blessed with excellent faculty, including outstanding female faculty and administrators. And the boys here can see the women in these leadership roles and see their impact on this school, but they're also seeing a lot of men in teaching roles and administrative roles and that is very important. And so uh, that those role models, both men and women, are so important to young people. And and the last thing I would say about mentoring in general, before I talk a little bit about how we sort of structure it here, is that our approach to mentoring comes from a very strength-based perspective. And what I mean by that is, I believe to be an effective mentor, you have to be able to look at a young person through a prism of strengths. What are their strengths? Uh, Everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. And to recognize the strengths and allow the boys to also understand, okay, this is how I can get stronger in areas that I'm not so strong. But a mentor is able to do both, but to really bring out those strengths, those gifts and talents. Uh, Now we have different layers of how we do that here. We start with the faculty because the faculty are the ones who deliver the mission of the school. If we're focused on mentoring and relationship, it begins with the faculty. And so when we hire a new cadre of faculty members, as we do every year, their orientation program is done at the beginning of the school year, the end of the summer, through a lens and a prism of mentorship. And we do this by honoring a colleague who was here for 17 years. He was the director of admissions. His name is McGregor Robinson. And he was an exceptional mentor, a gifted mentor. He could see things in young people in record time. He could see their strengths just by sitting down in an admissions interview with them and sort of have a deeper sense of their being. And sadly, McGregor died several years ago, and we created some structures here at Trinity-Pawling to honor McGregor's legacy through the focus on mentorship. So for our new faculty, they go through the McGregor Robinson orientation program for mentorship. And we talk about what it means to be a teacher here through that focus on mentorship, and that we can't be effective teachers unless we're effective mentors. And we talk about how to develop those skills, listening skills, communication skills, being present with kids, and so forth. And then every year, the full faculty, we have our McGregor Robinson mentorship objectives for the year. We have 3 objectives every year that are designed to strengthen the school, but strengthen the school through this focus on mentorship. And then lastly, we have a peer mentorship program that we develop with peer leaders every year. And the peer leaders are the ones from a student perspective who help welcome new students every year to the school and helping to guide them on their journey in the first few weeks and months of the school. So that's a little bit about how the mentorship factor fits into all this. And I want to get my colleagues' perspective, but I want to first turn to the students and get their perspective on how the relationships here at Trinity-Pawling, particularly with your teachers, coaches, uh, dorm parents, are different than where you were before. And that's really a boarding school question because you all, here at boarding school, but earlier in your school journey, you weren't at boarding school. And so how are things different here? And what have you come to value about the importance of relationships here at Trinity-Pawling? Tanner.
Yeah, okay. So this is a pretty good question for me because as a sophomore last year, I was really hammering down on the academics piece and just sort of like not in terms of how I'm going to apply this to the real world. And then during the beginning of this fall, my mentor, the coding teacher here, came up to me and he said to me, "You really need to develop your coding skills so that you can carry your Chinese and your entrepreneurship, your speaking skills into the real world." So, just sorry, I went on a little tangent there, but how that relates to something that didn't have at my other school. At my other school, was just sort of going through the motions. And here it feels like you have people that are actually looking at you and looking at you from a inner perspective that maybe I would see the world in of what the heck does this kid need to actually work on to improve in his life, to reach a trajectory that it hasn't been seen before, to do something new. And so that's what I think the mentors here really are able to do because they see you from breakfast to dinner to 10 p.m. when you're doing study hall in the library, whatever the heck you're doing, they see you. And they see you in all these different places, all these different ways that you're presenting yourself. And that really truly leads to them being able to help you out.
Great. Jameson.
I think for me personally, growing up, I was in public school my whole life. I was in classes with 30 to 35 kids. And I think that the big difference you see the moment you step on campus is kind of to build off what Tanner said, is you feel seen. You kind of feel as if people know you for who you are. You're not just another name on a class list. People know you and they want to get to know you. And I think that that's the real importance of what you see in school here is people want to get to know you. They want to get to know your strengths, but also they want to get to know your weaknesses. They want to know how they can help you improve. And they want to kind of figure out what they can utilize in order for you to get to your goal. And I think that that's also a big part of it is that everyone kind of has that same goal of getting each other to the best possible place that they can be. And I think that that sense of being seen by not only your teachers, but by your fellow classmates as well, that sense of from both sides of being seen by both of them in, as Tanner said, every kind of aspect of your life, whether that be on the athletic field, in the classroom, at meals, studying, when you're hanging out with your friends, kind of that idea of being seen kind of helps you feel as if people have your back. And I think that's super important and a lot different from, what I had previously experienced at public school.
Peter and Corin, anything to add?
I'll add some stuff. I moved away in 8th grade to a school in Rhode Island just for hockey, and they always just kept putting sports first, and like school would like you would fall behind really easily. And I had to make a change because like my schooling was going bad, my grades were going down. So I started looking into a prep school look, and I found that Trinity-Pawling was like the real home for me, where they focus on school first, then sports, and like the teachers are always there for you, and like you could literally walk around and like you see them. It's like walking around the street, you see someone you always say hi. It's always like a great community, and they always put you first. Where if you're struggling something, you're able to go knock. Like maybe you live in the same dorm as your teacher, you can go walk down to their room, knock on their door, and ask for help. Where they're always willing to help you and always push you first to put like you're succeeded first.
Corin,
Yeah,
did they say everything?
yeah, I'll probably say, just knowing everybody. I've been at schools where I don't even, some of my teachers don't even know my name, and I walk around kids that I've never really spoken to. But here we know everybody. Like Peter was probably one of the first people I met in Star Dorm. So just seeing each other grow up, seeing our teachers, they watch us grow up and develop as young men. It's just perfect. It's been a perfect experience for me.
Great, great. I was talking about mentorship, but I'd love to get your perspective, students. What do you think makes a good mentor? What qualities have been important to you from mentors that you've had so far? Peter?
A great mentor is like to me is someone that you could go to and talk about anything to them, and they're not gonna look at you a different way and stuff. Like I go to if I ever need help with anything, school, hockey, outside of school, like life advice, I always go to Chris Gilman, and he always like gives me the right tips and stuff to be like successful as a young man. And I find it's someone that you could just go to and open up to, even even if a tear comes down your cheek, they're not gonna be like, oh, this guy's a baby. They look at you as like a man, where they're like, they teach you the right way to grow up and be successful.
Jameson.
For me, I think it's someone who's not only gonna, pat you on the back and point you towards what you've done right, but someone who's gonna be honest with you. I think that's the most important thing for me is a mentor, someone who's gonna tell you when you're doing something wrong, because without that person telling you you're doing something wrong, you're never gonna change that. And I think that that's a big part of school here is that kind of sense of constructive criticism where if you're doing something wrong, somebody's gonna point you out on it, and it's not in kind of that feeling of hate. It's out of love. And I think that, I've gotten to experience that firsthand. I think one of the better mentors I've ever experienced in my life, Coach Cricaldi, has told me when I'm doing something wrong, and that kind of helps me to fix it. And I think that that kind of sense of criticism out of love, and pointing out that you're not going to do everything right. It's going to happen. You're not perfect. And a mentor is someone who sees that and helps push you to kind of strive for that perfection.
Corin.
Yeah, I would say a mentor is somebody that's not only gonna, celebrate your highs, but also, find the good in your lows. Uh, I would just say somebody again, Coach Cicaldi. I've, going through the recruiting process, he's been amazing for me. Just pointing me in the right direction and just telling me what I'm doing right and telling me what I'm doing wrong and doing it out of love and, not somewhere where it's like I don't like this kid, but we know that it's all coming from love.
Tanner, anything to add?
Yeah, that's really important, having the love aspect of it. And another thing I want to add on is just having multiple different perspectives, and having a lot of different mentors can actually help too. Just to get so many different ways to look at the same problem.
Right. We're obviously an all boys school. So students, what surprised you about Trinity-Pawling when you got here? What have you learned to value about an all boys school? Jameson, we'll start with you.
I think for me, it kind of showed itself right away. It was kind of, it's a little bit cliche, but the sheer sense of camaraderie between the boys. From the moment you step on campus, whether that be a tour or your first day in class, you're surrounded by a bunch of guys who want to see you do your best. And I think that with everybody pushing each other to be their best, and kind of that, whether it's showing up for each other's athletic games or going to the rock concert, and cheering on your brothers who are performing, I think that that sense of camaraderie is something that coming into school, I kind of hoped for and expected, but never to the extent that I've experienced it. I think that that's something that's so different from other places, and I think that with that all boys aspect, it's something that coming in, you might, as a young guy, you might be a little bit worried of that and a little bit scared of that idea. But I think that once you come in and once you embrace it, that sense of brotherhood that grows. And I think that I've met people here and brothers at school who will be in my wedding and who hopefully in 40 years I'll be calling to check up on. And I think that that's something that you live with these guys, you experience your highs, your lows with these guys, and that connection that you're able to build is something that I think is, really truly remarkable.
Corin.
Yeah, I'll just say the community. Everybody here, like I said, I was expecting a big school with a bunch of different guys, but going into a classroom where, it's kind of like a meeting instead of a class, that was really surprising to me. Another thing that was surprising was just like how much everybody loves each other here, whether you're in 8th grade or whether you're a PG. You all each other and you hang out, you eat lunch with each other, you eat dinner with each other, and just how much everybody loves each other.
And
Peter.
just-
Tanner, then Peter.
Okay, just something to add on top of the brotherhood piece. I would come into thinking, okay, what the heck, a boys' school? Or are we all just fighting all the time? Is this like a boxing match? What the heck? But once you get here, you'll realize there is like zero division between any different groups. You go to maybe a public school. I can't say I've been, but I've heard, okay, you got cliches. You have the like smoker group, and you have all the different groups. But here it's just go down to lunch and I sit with international students one day, and then Tuesday I'll sit with whoever else. It's just really crazy how much zero division there is here.
I find that like you could play a sport, you don't have to play a sport. Everyone is like a brother and they're always tight, where you could be on the lax team, the hockey team, the squash team. Not everyone, like you're not sitting with just with your hockey team, you're sitting with everyone, where you could walk down to lunch, you may not have any, like your teammates might not be there, you could go sit with your, like some school guys where they're not here for sports but they're fun to hang out with too, where you could walk around, you see people, like even if you run into someone that's not playing a sport or doing something else, you could bond with them, where it's easier to bond with someone here because everyone has a different path, but they're always super close and they're always able to experience the same thing as them.
Right. Emily, I want to turn to you and get back to this idea of mentorship from a faculty perspective. But you've developed so many relationships with certainly students that are on campus today. But your contact list on your phone must eat up half your phone's memory, because I know you are so connected with graduates, and I see you commenting on social media on Instagram for people that graduated here years ago. And talk a little bit about those relationships, uh, and how those relationships have enriched uh, your role as a teacher, your life as a teacher, the impact that these relationships have had on you professionally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no secret. I get emotional pretty quickly, but there is really nothing, very few things that give me greater joy than seeing former students, former athletes of mine, that are doing wonderful things like in their jobs or their communities. And certainly, I always tell them, like, as partners, as fathers, and then as parents, when I get to see my former students um, as a great father, that is the best. And so that's one thing that I really love to connect with kids about that. And then even talk about like their daily life as a parent and how it is, and juggling all of those things. um I would say too, you talk a lot about knowing what your gifts or talents are, like learning what your gifts or talents are. And I think through my life, I've realized that one of my gifts and talents is being a connector. I love trying to figure out how I know someone else, or who I might know in common with someone else, or how to connect a kid with an alumni. I don't know, like now we have the SIP program, and I love asking the seniors what their projects are going to be and trying to connect them with an alum who I think can help them with the project that they're doing. Those are just a few things that really bring me a lot of joy. And, that's why I do what I do and why I've stayed here for so long. Just being able, again, to see kids grow up. um, to me, amazing men is really the best.
And when you have a new teacher that comes in, and what advice do you give to that new teacher about how to develop these relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, it's hard, especially when that person might be younger. They might be a little bit nervous about really getting to know a kid. But I think that's the beauty of being here at Trinity-Pawling or in a boarding school world, where you're seeing them at the dinner table, at the lunch table, you're seeing them in sports, you're watching them play, you have them in the classroom. And not to kind of put your walls up of thinking that you need to be perfect and say all the right things, because I think the kids need to see that you're also a human. And you know some see you parenting your kids and all of that. That's a really healthy thing, in my opinion, for the kids to see you interact in your daily life, like for me with my husband or with my children. And I'm sure they can see sometimes I make mistakes. um, and that's okay. That's really, that's life. And then for them to know too, like, they can come to me. I'm not going to be judgmental, or so many times when I talk to alumni, they'll be like, "Oh, do you remember when I did this or I got in trouble doing that?" And honestly, that's not the things that I remember. It's, it's like a conversation we had at the lunch table when I ask my like questions for those boys that have sat at my table. I like to bring out the question cards. And it's something that they said at the lunch table that really stands out to me the most. Not, I don't know, them getting kicked out of a game once or in trouble in class or something like that.
Right. Slade, you have the privilege really of working with these boys when they're going through such a dramatic period of growth, and that is the college, you know, search process, the college application process. There's a lot of vulnerability involved, but there's a lot of guidance involved, and you're really very, very skilled at that, and to, using that your mentoring role to help build confidence through boys during this type of, which is really a challenging period. So talk a little bit about mentorship in this aspect of a boy's journey at
Sure.
Trinity-Pawling.
Yeah, well, thank you for that compliment. I hope I'm perceived that way because that's certainly my goal. Bill Dunham and I both take great pride in working with the seniors. And just to frame it a little different, I don't know a lot of these guys until their junior year. And once I get to know them, I almost get to know them too well because I have to read all their Common App essays. And the kids are very vulnerable with the essays and they have to trust you. And I've worked through a lot of essays that have also created very interesting conversations that really have nothing to do with college, just sort of with growing up. But I'm tipped off through an essay that somebody's struggling or trying to are grappling with an issue. I also have the privilege to watch these guys. And Jameson, you're good. You're my only senior on this panel. But when Bill Dunham and I take over these guys, they're like puppies with their eyes closed when it comes to the college process. And we really do have to hold their hand at the beginning. And then a wonderful thing happens right around September 15th, October 1st. They start to grow up very quickly to the point where I can step back and watch them take the lead in their process, even in dealing with their parents. And that is one of the most rewarding things to watch them grow. And they grow so quickly, September, October, to the point that we get to middle of October, beginning of November, they're talking about, yes, I got to get this in on November 1st. I got to make sure my teacher rec is ready. And it's so fun to watch them take charge and mature. And that's when I feel really good. Now, Bill Dunham and I are ready to jump in if somebody isn't at that stage. But out of the class, about 95% of them, by the time we get to middle of October, have made that transition from blind puppies to really well-seeing eye dogs, so to speak. They know the process. They've grown, and it's great because I get to see it all happen, and I get to know the backstory through the essays. It's a very selfish position. I have a nice seat to the whole process.
And I know this because your office is right across the hall from mine.
Yes, we've had some interesting post conversations.
but you've also in your role, and Bill Dunham does the same thing. You have to be there when there's disappointment, when something does not turn out the way that it has been, planned and well orchestrated and envisioned. And that's an important role of mentorship too, is to help guide young people through something that can be, at the moment devastating. I know when my daughter had some bad news with the college process, it was her college counselor that really did more than I did to help her sort of reframe that moment.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And you've probably heard me because you are right across the hall from me, and I only say it about 3 times a day in this fall, where a kid may say to me, I don't want to apply to X because I don't think I'll get in. And I will point out to them that, well, you just made the admissions office job really easy because you just rejected yourself. So if you're thick-skinned enough to make them make the decision, not you make the decision for them, go for it. And I understand a lot of times I'm putting the kids in a position where they probably will get rejected or waitlisted, but sometimes it comes through with an acceptance, which is a joyous moment and great growth. And sometimes it's like, I'm glad I did that process. Even though I didn't get in, I now won't be guessing for the next 30 years, what if I had tried applying to X? And I think that's a very important thing, to take these healthy risks. And I'm always encouraging healthy risks. But the flip side, Bill, is when a kid, this is a really selfish statement, but when a young man comes in and says, I got into X, I'm kind of like Emily, I'll cry. Sorry, Emily, but I mean, I get so emotional because I know what they went through to get there. And it's a great reward position to see a kid you really care for get that moment of joy, and to be there if they do get a rejection or two, to be there to say it's not the end of the world, because if a college didn't want you, that's probably not the college you wanted to be at anyway.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. And I would just circle back before I go to you, Andrew, that I've heard you encourage boys to apply to colleges where they say, I don't think I'm going to get in. And I've never told you this before, but my guidance counselor in college told me I was not going to get into all 3 of the ones that I applied to, and I did anyway. And but I did so with a lack of confidence. I did so because, I maybe it was just, I'm going to try to prove them wrong. But, what a difference that would have made if I had heard, do this, go for it.
Yeah.
And that confidence is so important. And back to the role of mentors, I think a good mentor builds that confidence through these relationships and everything.
Well, I don't think I hear what you're saying, but I don't think these guys appreciate the back channel that's going on with the teachers in writing what's called the secondary school reports, and that's the holistic letter. That's not a teacher recommendation. It's like, what is Corin like, or what is Peter like outside the classroom? What's he like at the dining hall? What's he like in chapel? What's he like on campus? And to see the level of intimacy between our teachers and our kids, these letters, Bill, are amazing. And I've had colleges call a little like, how do you know your kids so well? And I think it's the mentoring piece. And it's a huge asset for our kids going into the application process to have these letters written by mentors who really want to help any way possible. And they do it through these letters. So there's a team effort. And I sometimes I don't know if the kids are even aware how much, nothing to do with Bill Dunham and me. It has to do with their mentors that they've met in the dorm, on the athletic field, in the classroom. These are fabulous letters we get from our faculty.
Andrew, Coach Kirkaldy, you've already been sort of identified as a great mentor. Talk a little bit about how you sort of discovered that role for yourself through coaching and through working with young people, and how you see it being actualized here.
Thanks, Mr. Taylor. I just got to say, I'm incredibly just amazed at these young men and my colleagues on this call, and just the passion that we have about Trinity-Pawling. It's I'm ready to run through a wall. It's just amazing. But it's such a humbling experience to just be a part of this community, and to have these students come to you in times of celebration, in times of need. when I think about mentorship here at Trinity-Pawling, I think of it's this wonderful balance of accountability, empowerment, identifying, and it's love, right? It comes to those kind of four terms that are coming to my mind. Accountability, we have a community here. We want what's best for the community. The effort challenge is a wonderful piece where that comes in when we're challenging our boys to do things that they not necessarily are fond of all the time. Giving effort in things that we don't like to do all the time is challenging and it's hard. But the reward that comes from doing it is something that's quite amazing. Empowerment, right? Challenging them to think critically, to work together with other people, to ask questions, not necessarily giving them the answers, having them go explore. One of our core values here is curiosity, really engaging with that curiosity with them. And then I think the last one I want to talk about is identifying. I think early on in my coaching career, I was very much, it was my way or the highway. And then I had to realize that I was once a young kid too, that was curious and didn't know the answers. And I had people who took me under their wings, especially in college here at Trinity-Pawling. There's, you speak of, I think of Peter, Coach Gilman, right? He was someone that I still look up to. You got Mr. Mead. Mr. Mead, I still, when we don't have phones now, but when we did, I took my phone and I put that phone in the middle of the table because you were always one of the first people that I saw do that when we had sit down lunches. But identifying with emotions and not necessarily invalidating them, saying, suck it up, you got to toughen up, you got to man up, but allowing these young men to experience everything that they're feeling and just listening, actively listening to them. That only furthers the relationship that we have. And there's a lot more enjoyment in that for me, as opposed to trying to just be this hammer that's telling kids that we got to do it this way. There's no relationship in that. And I found, I guess, early in my coach career that I was missing out on that piece and it wasn't as enjoyable. Now, I have a wonderful relationship. Mr. Foster said one thing when I took this job is like, try to see your boys every day. Try to see your athletes every day. And I really try to do that. There was a wonderful challenge last year on Instagram where, lacrosse coaches, their athletes are behind them and they were facing the other way and they were saying hi. And the coaches were guessing who it was. And they were doing a good job. I know I could do that because I talk to my guys a lot and it's a ton of fun. So, and in the dorm, right? I think Emily alluded to this too. I'm in a coat and tie right now. The dorm's right out here. I have my boys in here. I would love to be in a sweatpants and sweatshirt right now and just go in the dorm and walk around and have a presence, be available for them. And they get to see me in a different light, right? We get to have jokes. I get to ask them, how's study hall? What are you doing after? Are you playing NHL? Are you playing FIFA? Are you playing Call of Duty? And really looking at it like, oh, okay, so he's Coach Kirkaldy, but he likes to play NHL, and he can talk to me about teams. So it's so much more rewarding to dive deeper into just the relationship itself. And you never know that every time. I mean, I've had plenty of talks with Jameson one-on-one, and every time I talk to him, I grow. It's amazing how intelligent these boys are, but you got to be able to listen to them. And if you want to, you know, shut yourself off from that, you're not going to learn anything. We need to grow. We grow together here at Trinity-Pawling, and that's probably the most amazing thing about this community.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. There was a question that came in before we began, and I'm really grateful for it because we're talking about just the power of relationships. But this is a question from a parent that wanted to know about homesickness, and it's a new parent. And how does the school help with new students who are feeling uh, unaccustomed to being away from home for the first time? How can parents help? And the first thing I will say is everybody, knows that feeling. And but I want to get the students' perspective because you all were new, and what's your advice for how to deal with those those early days where you're kind of missing home and you're not fully planted here yet. Peter?
When I first moved away, I tend like I always wanted to be home. Like I missed my friends, my family, and everything. But I find like those dark days, I would always go over to my buddy's room and just hang out with them and like try to make like a family with all your friends and stuff. Where then you kind of forget about that homesickness and you start to move on from that. And then you're like, all right, maybe when I feel down on this day, I'm just gonna go hang out. Say I'll go hang out with Jameson, go hang out with him for the day, go throw the lax ball around, talk hockey, talk lacrosse. I find if you get your mind off of it and like do something else that like you enjoy, you kind of forget about it. Where say you have a bad day in school, go hang out with your buddies, like go shoot pucks, go do something where it takes your mind off of it. That's what I find I do, where that works for me, even at a young age of like leaving in eighth grade, where I would always just find how to hang out with someone and grow close to them because even they might be homesick and you can learn ways what they do and stuff. What they do is being homesick there. That's what I find intends to work for me.
Yeah. Jameson. Jameson?
Yeah, I think for me, I came in mid-year, and I was a little bit worried about finding my place, and I think that um, everyone is so welcoming. You have your teachers, your student, your fellow classmates. Everyone's welcoming. Everybody is kind of looking out for you. Like I'll never forget the first day Corn came on campus. Actually, I was down at the lacrosse field, and Corn comes strutting down from out of the gym, and we had like 5 or 6 guys, and Horn came, introduced himself, and this is the first time we were meeting this kid, and we spent maybe an hour outside with him, and it felt already like we were brothers. I mean, he came back up to the dorm, hung out, and now he's somebody I'd call a lifelong friend. It's kind of interactions like that where you can meet someone for 5 minutes and it can be the first time you're meeting them, and you just see them throughout your day so often, and that sense of community is within each of us, and I think that makes it so easy for everybody to connect that I'm from Florida. I'm 18 hours away from home. And the fact of the matter is that this place is like a second home to me. And I think that once you come to recognize that and you come to kind of accept that, it makes the transition.
Corin?
Yeah, I'll say this. My second day on campus. So it was the first 2 days on campus, and it was the two hardest because my parents were leaving back down to North Carolina, and it's a 10-hour trip. And I was super homesick. I was like, is this for me? Maybe this was the wrong idea. My parents checked on me and they're like, if we need to, we'll come back. And then again, I saw Jameson in the dining hall, and I was sitting alone, and he came and sat down with me. He brought everybody over with him, and it just made everything a whole lot better. I remember one of my best friends now, Nikos, he was away for those 2 days, and then when he came back on Monday, he asked me to go shoot, go to the gym, and that changed my whole perception of this place and how welcoming everybody is.
Tanner?
Just in terms of what you can do as a parent, I think what has helped me, my parents don't really have too much contact with me on a daily basis. It actually really helps to limit that and let your kid be more in this place and being in one place rather than split between the two. Just something that's worked for me.
Yeah. And then, Andrew, Emily, Slade, we've all been in dorms. We know what it's like when there's a homesick boy in a dorm. What are some good strategies that have worked?
I would say just like what some of the boys have alluded to, you know, it is so easy for these guys to get drawn into social media and what's going on at home and what people are posting back home, but to, really put your phone down, like some of them have said, and to get involved here is really um, the best way to get over homesickness. And like Tanner said too, not cutting your family and friends out from home, but kind of limiting that, every time something comes up, texting or calling home, and instead trying to find an adult here, a kid here to reach out to first. I think is really important.
Yeah, I'd like to add two quick thoughts. First, if a student or if a parent thinks that their son is really acutely homesick, reach out to the advisor right away. I mean, we are told, and it goes without really, well, you should hear this as a parent. This is our number one job, the safety and the well-being of your son. That is the top priority. And if an advisee is in trouble, I'll drop anything and I will be there. That's the role. Plus, I want to be there. I want to help the guy. The other thing, and this is sort of on a really fun side, we have a lot of dogs on campus, and it's nice to be able to bring our dogs to work. But one of the reasons I bring Nora, and I know Andrew, you're with Charlie, the same thing, and Crosby. I love it when I come home, come back from class, and there'll be two or three kids sitting in my office with Nora, pulling on her tail, pulling on her ears, and just talking to a dog. I probably have a dozen students who come by every day and say hello to Nora. And it's pretty funny because I'll say hi, and they say, "No, I'm not here for you. I'm here for the dog." It the dogs really, I think, help with homesickness. So I encourage any student who's feeling a little homesick, go hang out with Charlie Dog, go hang out with Crosby, go hang out with Nora. It helps.
Piggyback off all that. Call us. I hand out I share my cell with all of our families here in the email that I sent out in the summer. You are the first line of defense. I'm a big believer in awkward conversations with the boys in the dorm. I'll get a text from a parent like, he's homesick, but he doesn't want me to know. He doesn't want me to know that I told you. I'm like, well, it's hard to approach the subject like that. And so I say, let me talk to him, because it's a great admittance of vulnerability right there. It's a great learning teaching point for these young men to say, like, hey, I don't feel like me right now. And I get to say, hey, that's okay. I had that happen a couple of weeks ago. And to your point, Slade, I brought Charlie upstairs. We sat in the bed and we just talked. And the difference in that young man, was amazing. It was really fun to see.
So feel free to put any questions that any of you might have in the Q&A section. But I wanted to ask Mr. Taylor, what types of mentorships are available through our extensive alumni network?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. We do have an extensive alumni network on LinkedIn and then through the school as well, and that is a tremendous resource. I have recent graduates or graduates who are in college or graduating college reaching out to me all the time. Hey, I'm interested in this type of field. Can you match me with some alumni who are in that field? And we can do that really easily, and that happens all the time, both with the school's help and then just people networking through social media themselves. And that's a tremendous advantage, tremendous resource. And I think it was you, Emily, who mentioned the SIP earlier. All of our seniors, as a graduation requirement, is to do a senior independent project. And that is an opportunity for them to do a deep dive into anything that they have an interest in. And whenever possible, we try to match an alumnus up with that senior so that the senior can get greater information, experience about what it's like to be involved in whatever that interest is. It could be a vocational interest, it could be an avocational interest. But we want those relationships to develop. We've got, one alumnus who's done that 3 or 4 times with 3 or 4 different kids, and they love it. The alumni love it. They really enjoy being part of that student's experience, and I think the students get a lot out of it too. But that mentorship really uh, goes well beyond the grounds here at Trinity-Pawling. It exists within this much larger Trinity-Pawling network that literally spans the world.
Wonderful. kind of going back to what Mr. Kirkcaldy was talking about, the school does talk a lot about the importance of seeing vulnerability as a strength. Why is this important? Mr. Kirkcaldy, can you help expand on that and answer that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think it's it's really hard for it's confusing for a young man to express truly how they feel, and I think there's so much stigma behind it, or they feel that the outside perception, if they feel a certain way, is going to be viewed in a negative light, and that's a shame. That's horrible, and it breaks my heart. Um, I think how we do it here at Trinity-Pawling, which is, I think, incredibly powerful, is that I think we're not afraid to show our vulnerability ourselves. I know I do it a lot with our lacrosse program. I do it a lot with my advisees. And I think if we are leading from the forefront with that, I've seen in my experience that it allows our boys to shed layers. It allows them to feel safe to come forward, to not feel judged, to we do a survey every year, and I think it was 99% of our boys felt that they had someone here that they could go to when they were struggling. That is incredibly powerful. And we were very, very proud with that, but we were really, really focused on why it wasn't 100%, which I think was even more amazing. So I think we do a good job here at, Jameson's got a mustache, I got a mustache. It's November, No Shave November, and we've kept men's mental health at the forefront right now, and making sure that it's okay to talk about, and really embracing the awkwardness that surrounds it. It's important, especially for men's mental health. And so it's, I think the quick answer is, because I know we have some time, is that, we lead by example. The men and the women here are open about their vulnerability, and I think the boys really, really latch on to that.
I want to chime in really quickly, Andrew. I think that another place that it's really modeled to the boys to show vulnerability is in the chapel. And I know you just gave a chapel talk the other day, Andrew, and so did Slade. Obviously, Mr. Taylor gives lots of chapel talks, but that's another place that really not only are the adults modeling being vulnerable in front of the entire school population, but the boys do the same thing. Jameson, when you gave your chapel talk, and spoke about your family and what you've been through, like that right there is modeling being vulnerable in front of not just your friends and people who know you and love you no matter what, but other kids that might not know you super well yet, but I guarantee they now have this camaraderie and feeling like, wow, he just got up in front of the school and talked about something really personal, and I can do that too.
Susie, if I could also take it in a little bit different direction, the vulnerability. A good essay has conflict. A good story has conflict. Otherwise, it's not much fun to read. And I'm amazed at how vulnerable our kids are in their essays that they write for the colleges, how they had a challenge somewhere and worked through it or are working through it. And it's very refreshing to see that they're willing to talk about some tough issues. And I think that comes from the chapel talks, and it comes from the conversations, Emily and Kirk's have with their advisees. And it's just the culture of Trinity-Pawling that it's okay to have some challenges and to work through them.
I'd be able to add one thing to
Back
that.
to you, Susie.
Peter.
Even with that vulnerability part, like even when you go up to do a chapel talk, I remember I did one my first year here, and like even after everyone like comes up to you and says like, "Oh, great job up there. You put out some good points. Like you actually motivated me to do one." Like everyone like they're nervous to go up there and do it, and like they always like second guess themselves. But after you feel like the sun's pointed on you, where everyone's like, "Great job!" Like everyone's clapping for you at the end. Like it's like I feel like it makes you feel like everyone's there for you and is there to see you succeed, where the vulnerability part kind of goes away a little bit, where once you see the brotherhood and everyone cheering for you after that.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Taylor, do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, I just want to thank certainly the students and my colleagues. I think this has been a fabulous conversation and a real window into what I believe we all believe makes Trinity Polling so special and distinctive.
Wonderful. Well, that's enough for today. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for joining us. The next Pride Perspectives webinar will be happening in 2026, believe it or not, on January 27th, actually January 20th. The topic is Boys in Citizenship, Becoming, Belonging, and Community. So join us for that in a couple months. We wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and a safe and healthy holiday season. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.